Welcome to Quick Shots. Quick Shots.
All right, welcome to the Quick Shots with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. You ask the questions, we give you the answers. As alluded to in the main podcast this week, question from me, Alex, how would a listener go about and how would I go about asking for a pay rise? Wages up 3% for the year, 4% on an annual basis in the past quarter. How do you go about that hard discussion?
Cuzzy, I thought you were just pulling my leg. All right, you really want to do this? Okay, geez, I wish I was more prepared, but...
Oh, come on, mate. This comes naturally to you. You do it every second month.
Listen, I've got to take my own notes because I've got to roll up my sleeve the next couple of weeks, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, it's a lot more, cuz, than going on Seek.com and seeing where you comped, where you compared to. First and foremost, you've got to quantify what you do. So your KPIs, how many hours you're working, and be really honest with yourself. And maybe sort of play a bit of devil's advocate with one of your best friends, or a family member that's willing to be honest with you, or ask you the hard questions that your boss might, because it is a little bit scary. It is a little bit daunting. So quantify what you do. In the hours that you do it, everything, put it into a number so that it can be actually measured and discussed. Number two is you got to have that hard discussion. Book in that time with your boss or your employer, whoever it is. Book in the time, and when you book it in, be pretty evidently clear it's to talk about you and a review of some description. So make sure you know all of your numbers before you're going into that meeting. I think, you've got to be asking the question, is there any extra work that I can be doing to earn a little bit more money? I would like to earn X amount more. Is there any way that I can help? Is there a department that lacks in X and Y? And to be evidently and abundantly clear, it's because you would like to earn more money. There is no shame in wanting to earn more money. Oh, serious. A lot of us have fun at our jobs. I do. But, you want to, I guess, make the most of your time when it's 5 days a week. So, do not shy away from that. I think that's really important. The word greed sort of gets a bit thrown around, but, this is your life. This is your life. Wage growth is going up, and you are a valuable player. That should give you a pretty good starting point, and then you can use that to sort of segue into, listen, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to be, and maybe that is a bit of a career progression. Maybe that's you moving into another department. Oh, did I just waffle on or what? So unprepared. Anywho, cuz.
Yeah.
Let's go to you, shall we? This one comes in from Benny. And geez, Benny had a lot to say, or a little, but a big zinger in a text message to me earlier in the week when he saw that Dan Andrews was voted back in, which was quite funny. So we love Benny. We love his commentary. But he's actually asked you, cuz, do you think digital currency and, that sort of centralized banking, crypto, etc., will replace cash?
Ooh, certainly heading that way. And I guess it's an extension of the transition that's been happening where we've gone from cash into sort of your tap and go. Before the pandemic, tap and go was as high as 83% of all transactions. I'd imagine following the pandemic, it's in the 90s now. And then with all these hacks and sort of security issues, the digital currencies, if they're controlled by governments and are safe ways to store money, start to become that little bit more attractive. So will we be cashless? I hope not. But I certainly could see digital currencies maybe taking the place of some of those tap and go card payment systems that have become increasingly prevalent in recent times.
I just don't support a cashless society yet, cuz.
No, me neither.
I just don't.
Too hard to know where your money's going.
Well, yeah, that's true. But also, just think of, if I want to give a homeless guy $50 or whatever, I want to be able to do that. What was he going to do? Have a tap and go system?
Yeah.
Seriously, come on. So I really hope that we're a very long time away from that, if not ever. But I don't think it's a never going to happen scenario.
Very good. Well, I hope so. This one from Emily would like to know, with rents increasing so quickly,
yes,
do units suddenly become more attractive given that they're typically more affordable to rent?
Oh, that is a great question because it's something that's sort of like I've even been more acutely aware of as well. What? We've got 1% vacancy rates? I mean, surely, with that kind of demand and very little supply, there's only one way that rents are going to go, and it's up. And you can pick up some bargains with apartments. Obviously, it depends where you're looking. But I mean, even in Melbourne, you can get a 1-bedroom for sort of $450,000, $500,000, cuz. It's crazy. But herein lies the problem. Yes, you will have very good cash flow. So you might be in a position where you've got a really high yield. So you're cash flow positive, say you're yielding 5.5%. But cash flow is only one component of a really effective portfolio. The other key component, and you do need both, but key component is growth, my friends, growth. And that is the value of your asset, your income producing asset, increasing in value. So you being able to use the capital growth, the equity, to buy again. And unfortunately, units do not historically have the growth. Why? Well, there's just no land value. You own a percentage of the land with everybody else that owns a unit in that building. And the land is what grows in value. And as time goes on, your 300 square meter block of land, that could be 5 or 6 units or more. So the land is the commodity that's the demand and supply. Well, there's not much supply at all. They can't make more land. So for any portfolio, cash flow is abundantly important. And yeah, you might get an awesome result on an apartment, but that could, having that only, actually sort of stronghold you from being able to buy something else because you won't have the growth to leverage into it. So cash flow and growth are what you need. But do you have anything to add to that, Cuz?
No, I just think there is other ways to, provide affordable rental, and what you're trying to do is make sure that you've got a tenant in the property for the majority of the year and it's not unaffordable. So doing your research and sticking to a rent that sort of sits maybe under 35-40% of the weekly income in a particular area, that's those sort of numbers and bits of research can be important to still be able to solve that problem, but not sort of have the exposure of not having the land, which, very good point. The land is very important.
It's so important. And I think one other thing to consider that I just thought of is, if you're looking in Melbourne, for example, and you're looking at an apartment for $500,000 and you're going, gee, that's cheap and it'll get good rent. Well, you might be able to actually spend $500,000 in Adelaide when you own a significant piece of land as well. So you do get the cash flow and the growth component for the same price. But yes, you need to look into a city that you may not be familiar with. I think that pretty much wraps us up, Cuz.
You did the heavy lifting today. Well done.
Wow. The things that you never say, that a list of things you never say. Hey, like we said on our pod drop yesterday, we have got the last quick shots of the year. So send them in. Send in the curly ones. Send in the hairy ones. I'm going to send them straight over to James and he's going to answer them for you because I have done the heavy lifting of this pod.
Strategic.
It is extremely strategic. I'm hungry.
Have a good week, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.